So the book is called Fountainville, and it's a retelling of a medieval Welsh myth from the Mabinogion. So it's an Arthurian legend, and basically I was asked to put it in a contemporary context. And it's a very strange original story, so I had a bit of trouble because there's an amnesiac prince and a lion and a serpent and all kinds of things going wrong. And in my story, I have opium dens and a surrogacy clinic and other things. The publishing house is called Seren. It's a Welsh house, and I suppose because of my somewhat Welsh connection, I was asked to do it. And basically, what they said was that you're free to interpret it any way you want. And a lot of the characters, the main character is the lady's handmaid in this tale. It's called the Lady of the Fountain, the original story. And I found her the most fascinating character. And basically what I did is I made the story through her voice, and I put her at the center of it. And I think some of the elements, I worked most of the elements, but not all of them, because I think the idea was to create a new story from the old one, but with recognizable aspects and themes. Well, the fact that I'm half Welsh, my mother is from North Wales, and I have, I suppose, some affinity for the place and for the poetry particularly, Dylan Thomas and R.S. Thomas and all of that. But I didn't actually know the Mabinogion when I was asked to write it, because it's not as widespread as, say, the Mahabharata or the Ramayana is here. But it is that kind of sort of mythical tale, with all these different magical elements. So I was a bit concerned, being the outsider, to go in and tell someone else's story, because I didn't feel it was my story to tell. But part of the nice thing about the process, part of the sort of surprising thing, was that gave a different kind of freedom to approach it from a completely different way, because I wasn't too close to the subject matter to start off with. Absolutely. I mean, actually, one of the nicest things about writing this novella was that it came out of a journalism assignment that I had done for Doctors Without Borders. I was sent to Nagaland to write about the healthcare situation there. And it was a long piece of reportage for an Italian publishing house, my publishing house, Feltrinelli. And I was so struck by what I'd seen, because it was a small hospital in this town of Mon, and there was no running water, no, very erratic electricity, no possibility for C-section for women. And I come from Madras, which is sort of Mecca of medical tourism in India. So it was this huge jump within the same country. And in the fiction, having written the piece of journalism, 1 year later, I found that very much the geography of Nagaland, the culture of Nagaland, and this particular town informed my imaginary town of the story, because I wanted to write about surrogacy and the idea of power within surrogacy, because it's usually women who come from poorer backgrounds who go through this process. And I wanted to explore that dynamic and then put it sort of in a place that was not named, but was in fact in my head, this town of Mon in Nagaland. Yeah, it's one of them. I mean, it's also challenging the idea of the hero, because in this story, the knight is supposed to be, we attribute certain heroic qualities to the knight in these tales. And I think what I got from the original story, after having read it, was that he was very cowardly, and in fact he was running away and he was not fulfilling his obligations. He killed someone's husband and then married her and then abandoned her, and it's a very convoluted tale. And then I thought, how do I change the focus from the man to the woman? And because there was a particular image of these 24 maidens in a castle from the original story, and when I was researching, I saw this picture of a surrogacy clinic in Gujarat where the women were actually interred for the entire duration of their pregnancy in one house. And that was my castle of 24 maidens, because it was this idea that you have to stay together in that condition for 9 months, leaving your regular family behind in order to give someone else a family. And so that was one of the most sort of interesting and powerful themes that I wanted to work with in my story, because I think it's a very big topic in India today. There's not the laws are not in place to protect these women, and there is a sort of frontier land, like anything goes kind of thing, which is terrifying. Also, the idea of the designer baby, that you can create this life, and in fact that's the one mystery left to us, and it's no longer going to be a mystery, because you can in fact conceive a child without two people ever having met in a laboratory in a petri dish. So yeah, I think there are flaws, but then eventually they kind of come through at the end. There is this sense of either it's the hubris or the thing that their Achilles heel, something that pulls them down in a way, but they are triumphant at the end, and the stories and the songs are for the heroes and the heroines. But I was very intrigued by the fact that this hero in this story was not particularly triumphant even in the original, that he was a ditherer, that he didn't have the adequate focus. He was like a spoiled child who went off on a mission just for the hell of it and then didn't quite follow through. And I was intrigued by how it had sustained over the years in a kind of heroic tradition of one of Arthur's knights, you know. And in my story, I used some of it, but I don't think I glorify him in the end. I don't vilify him either, but I've just shifted the focus towards this handmaid who is the one that has the most chutzpah, I think, in the original story. So I wanted to make it about her. Yeah. And you know, the original story is called The Lady of the Fountain, and yet we never know the name of the lady, and she says about 2 lines in the entire story. So it's very intriguing, because the naming of a myth, to call it The Lady of the Fountain, and then we don't know why the fountain is important. We don't know much about the lady. So it was very beguiling to me that the entire story was supposed to be about that, but we knew nothing about it by the end of it. We were as sort of in the dark. And so I kind of tried to give agency both to the lady, who is called Begum in my story, and to Luna, who is in the original Luned, the handmaid. This relationship between this older woman and the younger, and to do with their bodies and to do with their relationship. It's told in the story, it's Luna's story interspersed with the knight who is called Owain. So he comes in the second half of the book. We hear him in the first person, but the entire story is otherwise told in first person from Luna's perspective. Well, no, I don't want to give too much away, because there are a few twists and turns in the plot, but no, the end is, I guess, also for me, it's challenging the idea of family. I think one of the more interesting things that I've understood now is that original family structure that we are so tied to is breaking down in some way, and I don't think that's an altogether bad thing. I think the idea of the mummy, daddy, baby, you know, that unit is changing, and in fact there are a lot of sort of, say, single mothers who go on holidays together and have Christmas lunch together, or you know, they rely upon each other to be their backbone, or the idea of the surrogacy family, to have gay parents who are raising children. And so the environment of a family is changing, and that I find very interesting, because I think personally that family can be hugely oppressive and we don't choose it, but this new way of family is almost allowing you to choose your own family as you would choose your friends. And so you're choosing the sort of structure that you want to have around you, the people that you're going to rely on. And it's challenging because, you know, it's not blood, as we say, but then there are other bonds, and the way that we forge them, I think there are a lot of stories to be told in that context.